book writing skills to complement Glenn's deep knowledge of vertebrate brains, both extant and extinct. Georg's knowledge of avian and mammalian nervous systems would also nicely complement Glenn's expertise on piscine, amphibian, and reptilian brains. As first author, Georg would do the writing and generate most of the figures, but both authors plan to meet regularly to harmonize their vision, hatch specific plans, and discuss revisions to the figures and text. 4 years and more than a dozen face-to-face meetings later, the book is here. Reflecting on the process now, the metaphor of 2 people paddling a canoe, illustrated in figure P1, seems apt. Georg was sitting in the front paddling furiously and alert to diverse obstacles and possible paths. Glenn was in the back steering in more subtle ways and delivering occasional power strokes. Together they managed to get through unharmed and without major fights. More importantly, they took a path that neither one of them alone would have been able to pursue. Nor was the path entirely predictable. In several cases, both authors abandoned some of their own long-standing views. Those moments were especially thrilling, perhaps because they were risky. 1. Reconstructing History: Aims and Methodology. There is one purpose to life, and one only: to bear witness to and understand as much as possible of the complexity of the world, its beauty, its mysteries, its riddles. The more you understand, the more you look, the greater is your enjoyment of life and your sense of peace. Anne Rice, Servant of the Bones, 1996, page 135. It is interesting to contemplate a tangled bank, clothed with many plants of many kinds, with birds singing on the bushes, with various insects flitting about, and with worms crawling through the damp earth, and to reflect that these elaborately constructed forms, so different from each other and dependent upon each other in so complex a manner, have all been produced by laws acting around us. There is grandeur in this view of life. Charles Darwin, The Origin of Species, 6th edition, 1872, pages 444 to 445. Separated by more than 100 years, by the Atlantic Ocean, and by very different lines of work, Anne Rice and Charles Darwin both described the pleasure that can come from observing nature's complexity. One can, of course, appreciate nature without giving it much thought, but Rice and Darwin were describing a deeper sense of joy, one that comes from not just looking at nature, but from understanding how its diverse elements are connected to one another and to us. This deeper sense of enjoyment lies at the heart of natural history and is what we hope to facilitate. But how does one go from merely looking at nature to understanding it? 2 main approaches have been recognized. One is to collect a large number of observations in various places under a variety of different conditions, and then to look for meaningful patterns in the collected data. This comparative approach can suggest hypotheses that might explain the discovered pattern. These hypotheses can then be tested using the second complementary approach, which is to manipulate nature in highly specific ways and then observe whether the manipulations have the expected effects, that is, the experimental method. The crucial difference is that the comparative method relies on naturally occurring variation, whereas the experimental method creates artificial variation that can be tightly controlled. Although the experimental method is often celebrated as the key to scientific success, the comparative approach has played a crucial role in most scientific fields. In the following sections, we illustrate this role first in several non-biological domains and then within biology. Our aim is not to elevate comparative approaches over experimental ones, but to highlight the utility of comparative research, especially in disciplines that are not very amenable to experimentation. This sampling of comparative research in diverse disciplines also allows us to introduce a few concepts that are important for later chapters, such as the idea that a layer of